Good morning, folks. This is not going to be a scripted or edited video. I just want to talk to you about something that's been swirling in my head for the last couple of days. And depending upon where you are in the space, some of this might be news to you, some of it might not. And it just stay with me here because this is kind of a weird trip down nostalgia lane. Okay? So, we all remember, well, let me rephrase that. Most of us remember a time before social media existed. Many of us remember a time before the internet existed at all, right? And you had your local friends, local hangouts, stores, things like that. And you would just, that's how community was grown. And I think that in toys or any collecting space, including gaming as well, the internet served to bolster and strengthen those kinds of bonds rather than them being conjured out of nowhere, right? But then you have MySpace come along, Facebook, later Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, obviously Twitch as well. All of these, both in combination and on their own, really bolstered, the geek culture that we now seem to know and love as a mainstream thing. Even if there are those of us in the extreme parts of collecting that are still on the fringes, because there are people that love their MCU, love Lord of the Rings, love this, love that, but they're not going out and buying every single version of Lord of the Rings like my buddy Order 42, or they're not buying every single Superpowers collection toy that they had as a kid like I am. They're not, the list goes on. They're not customizing Action Force, 5 days a week like Jim Largo, right? Um, so there's still this sense of community with some extremists, if you will, right? But I would argue that many of us would not have gotten to those levels of extreme if we didn't have a litmus to compare ourselves to, right? There were certainly people that were collecting things, like video games and so forth in the early days, pre YouTube, pre internet, and just going after it and just going nuts. Um, Toys to a lesser degree, from what I've seen in the past. There's always that one person that did it, but now that you can kind of see people's philosophy behind it, understand where they're coming from, look at how they did things, uh, not only does it feel more justified, but it means like, okay, I'm not weird for wanting to do this. Other people took the plunge. I can afford to take the plunge as well. That's all well and good. I don't think there's anything wrong with any of this, and I do think that on its most basic level, most social media helps to push that along in concept. But in the last 10 years especially, it has devolved into these typed out screaming matches and I'm right, you're wrong philosophy. The art of debate has been lost. It's just been a cesspit. I've been very vocal about that. Many others have been vocal about that, and it's not getting any better. That is what it is. What I'm about to say is not going to change any of that. But what's interesting is that social media itself appears to be changing in a big way. Facebook is harder to navigate than ever. They're trying to move Facebook away from the primary company of Meta, and there's different things they're trying to achieve with this. I don't know where their focus is, but Facebook itself is just an unmitigated mess. As I've said, it's difficult to navigate, it's hard to use, it's difficult to find the people I want to find. Twitter is having a similar problem where now that Elon Musk has bought the company, he's trying to desperately to monetize the platform and is taking the time honored verified check mark and making it a paid service, meaning you pay him $8 a month, you can have a check mark. Now, on its head, he's saying it should stop, rampant bots from doing this. It's like, well, depending upon the kind of bot that you create, if it's something that generates income for you, you can probably afford the check mark. And I understand the simplicity of what he's talking about. It's not going to turn out that way. But it's going to go so far as to influence the algorithm of Twitter to where on your basic feed, you're not going to be able to see unverified tweets. That's what he's been quoted in the press. And there's been this huge thing about that. Um, so just monetizing the visibility of people you follow. For years, I don't go on the main feed. I use my notifications. I have notifications set for the people I find the most important that I want to keep up with all the time. And that has served me well for many years. And so far, it seems to be intact. There's a separate thing for verified notifications and so forth. I don't know how that's going to work, and I certainly don't know if notifications are going to work anymore. I think that for this to work the way he thinks he wants it to work, you're going to have to remove notifications altogether. Otherwise, that's your loophole. Click the notification bell on Twitter for anyone you really want to see, and you'll be good. For those of you not using Twitter, you're like, what do I care? Well, Twitter has been kind of its own little private post-apocalyptic thing for people that don't like Facebook. And Facebook's been long kind of with Facebook has now become what MySpace was when Facebook was new. And Twitter is not far behind. And with a complete lack of alternatives of just easy to use basic spaces where you can catch up with people, I don't know what it's going to do for our sense of community. And I would say that leaning into platforms like Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch are probably the answer. But even those, in some cases, are getting harder and harder to use, harder and harder to keep up with the people that you care about the most. Instagram's feed is notoriously awful for me. I designate people close friends so I get notifications when they post something, but that doesn't always work in real time, at least not in the way that I want it to. The feed, I don't know what the hell I'm looking at half the time, and I can doom scroll for an hour and not find what I'm looking for. And nothing is in the correct order. I don't know. I've tried to find plugins and tools that can make it, more visible as far as what I'm trying to find, and it's horrible. It's not great. It has potential, but it's not there. YouTube is in a very similar state where the subscription feed, because of all the common wisdom about thumbnails these days, I get overloaded. I get analysis paralysis trying to figure out which video belongs to who. Drives me up a wall. And some of that is having had a YouTube handle for many, many years and things start to blend together. But things start to look samey, if you get my drift. Everything looks the same. And I can't find what I'm looking for. Twitch is not quite as bad, only because I curated all of my follow list on Twitch so that I only see the people I really want to see. And that's a relatively easy thing to do. If you have notifications on for those channels and you do have the mobile apps, generally speaking, despite my concerns with some of the business practices that Twitch is doing, at least you can find what you're looking for most of the time. But again, that's not going to last forever. All of these things are driven by money or avenues to push you to pay more money and things like that. Rather than curating the content that you have told the platform you want most. And so I do think within the next couple years, the traditional social media, all of these different platforms we're talking about, we're going to see some drastic shifts towards things we don't like, and something new is going to have to emerge. And it's going to have to be focused on what you want. There has to be a way that you can give the users what they want in terms of curating their own feed and still make the average advertiser happy or however you're doing things. But I gotta be honest, in the face of $8 a month for a check mark that I didn't earn on Twitter and all of the ad-based crap on all the other social media sites as far as everything you have to do to try and push yourself in people's faces. I would, and this is going to be unpopular, I would pay $5 a month for a functioning, you know, community curated social media site. I would pay that price. If I knew there weren't ever any ads on it, that they were filtering out bots and they were filtering out scams and all that trash, and that you could trust that the people that you were looking at were really those people, that would be worth $5 a month to me. And I'd even pay some lifetime membership thing if I had to. That's the kind of thing that I'd like to see. Because I worry that we're going to revert back to not being able to talk to each other. There are people that I used to talk to all the time that I hardly ever hear from anymore. And I don't think it's because of anything along with the relationship, but they're just, it's hard to find them and their statuses and see what's going on in their life. Now, I'm not talking about the YouTube community or Twitch community or collector friends. I'm like talking about lifelong friends. I'm having a hard time finding out what they're up to um, in social media. Now, can I text them or message them? Sure, I can. It's not a problem. Not a big deal. But if I just want to just look in and see how things are going on a profile I know they have, it is that much harder to figure that stuff out. And I realize this is kind of a weird thing for me to be talking about, but the point I'm trying to make really boils down to this. Before social media and the internet, we thought we were the only ones, and we thought we were weird. Then social media and the internet comes along, we find out there's a lot of people like us, and we form communities and form these bonds, and we've built this great thing up. But now those platforms are turning on us, making it more difficult to maintain our sense of community and keep up with the people and the passions that we love so much. So unless something new comes along to blaze a trail in the spirit of that, I worry that the community in many ways will fall apart on some level, and it will be more difficult to get information in front of people's eyes and ears and hands. It'll be harder to inspire people to collect and do things. And I don't like it. And I realize that the whole impetus for this really boils down to this the Twitter takeover, and that doesn't, for a lot of you, you don't care. Um, but with it being such a juggernaut of social media and being one of the places where, despite its hellscape reputation, with a few clicks and a few things, a few tweaks, you could make it work to your advantage. With that going away and everything else being harder to navigate, it does make me wonder where we're going to be even a year from now. So I do ask that you think about that. And if you know anybody that's got a nest egg and could hire some developers to make that completely ad-free, verified, actual functioning space, get a hold of them, because we're going to need it, folks. We are really going to need it. And I realize this is not really a toy grind, but without social media and this platform you're watching me on, I wouldn't have this opportunity to speak to you guys about it. And the fact is, I don't want to lose touch. In the meantime, guys, may all your grinds be merry, may all your card backs be straight, and may you be able to find anything you're looking for at any given time at a price you feel is reasonable, even if you're shopping for social media. Cheers.